Hello, everybody. I'm Jonathan from Boredom Sated.
And I'm Boris from Boredom Sated.
Today, we are going to continue our creature comparison lists as we are going to talk about the Storm Giant.
Yes, the biggest, toughest giant from all the previous editions in Dungeons and Dragons, and it just doesn't seem like it is this time.
Oh, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, there are many types of giants. Usually, the first giant you're going to fight would be a hill giant or something like that.
Right.
You could also talk about like giant offshoots, like the troll, the cyclops, things like that. But the storm giant is pretty much the most iconic giant in Dungeons and Dragons, at least.
Right.
We'll go into that a little bit further. The concept of giants have been around forever, or nearly forever. Frost giants, storm giants, cloud giants have been around since the Scandinavian folklore, obviously, with the Jotun. It comes from Proto-Germanic for Jotun, back in Old Norse, the Jotun again. So we've got a lot of workings with that. They were, I mean, if anybody who knows, the Jotun are still used in many forms.
Yeah.
In many games today, you can fight against giants, you can fight against Jotun. Looking up the storm giant in general, you can find a storm giant listed in tons of games, comic books, they're still listed, everything else. And of course, the storm giant is well known for basically being above cloud giants. You go up into their realm, and they are incredibly powerful and dangerous creatures.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And giant creatures are also in Eastern mythology, with Yois having a giant offshoot in the Japanese mythology, and I know there's something in Indian as well as Chinese mythology with giant individuals. They're not as diverse as the ones in the Norwegian, with all the different types of giants to fight Thor and Odin, but there are giant type creatures in Eastern mythology as well.
Right. So when we get to talking about them in D&D, now in previous editions, storm giants have been the big bads of giants. They were 16th level, 17th level creatures. They were very, very powerful. In this edition, not as much. In both 5th edition and Pathfinder 2, they are creature level 13s.
Yes, which is very surprising. I think it's one of the first that was exactly the same level and creature level.
It's this is one of the ones that's very, very close, that is the same creature level, which means it's even easier to compare them.
Right, definitely.
So first, we need to compare. The biggest comparison that we can make with them is they're both innate spellcasters. They both can cast levitate, feather fall. They both have the ability to control weather.
Right.
That's a big deal. Now, in spells, there's one major difference, but at the same time, kind of a similarity between how the Storm Giant works in 5th edition and how it works in D&D.
Yep. And a little bit surprising with the D&D having a damage resistance to cold. I mean, the damage immunity to lightning and thunder is totally understandable, but the cold is a little bit surprising.
Yeah, and in Pathfinder 2, they're only immune to electricity because thunder isn't a damage, and they didn't decide to go the cold route. Now, one of the other major differences is, it's a major / minor difference is their main methods of damage. Now, obviously, both of them are giants, so they can still throw rocks at you, which are both effective. They both wield giant greatswords, and their greatswords hit for a massive amount of damage. In 5th edition, they have a plus 14 to hit, which is humongous. That's actually something I found kind of funny. They have a plus 14 to hit, and their AC is dirt. Their AC is only 16 for a level 13 creature, which is ridiculously low. They hit themselves on a 2.
Yep. And which is in relation to what to hit is for the Storm Giant as a 13th level creature, it's probably very closely related based on the different systems with their 2-hit bonuses.
Yeah, their plus to hit bonus and their damage bonus are pretty close. Now, again, 5th edition plus to hit is a little higher, but the AC is a little lower, whereas in Pathfinder, they're more streamlined.
Yes.
Now, one of the other things I did want to talk about is the lightning strike ability. In 5th edition, they have a lightning strike ability, which is they can throw a lightning bolt up to 500 feet away at any creature they can see. Everything within 10 feet of that spot that gets hit has to make a DC 17 dexterity saving throw or take 12d8.
12d8.
Yeah. 12d8 electricity damage, which is nasty, and it recharges on a 5 or a 6. Now, in Pathfinder 2, he doesn't have that ability, which is kind of sucky. Sucky, terrible word. It's bad. However, instead,
he has the lightning blade.
Lightning 3 times a day.
Yes. But he also has the lightning blade, which does increase the damage and lets you strike everybody within, I think, similar range. But you do get a -2 circumstance penalty against each creature that is within the reach. So I guess it's sort of close, but not really.
It's not. Well, the thing is that is an additional ability. Because the thing is that all of the things we've talked about, I've gone over everything that a Storm Giant does in 5th edition. There's no more additional abilities. Whereas, that's an additional ability that we get in Pathfinder 2. Now, one other thing that we're going to mention is they both have swim speeds. And the speed of a Storm Giant in 5th edition is ridiculous. Walking speed is 50, swim speed is 50.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a big fan of the idea of throwing around electricity spells underwater because I usually like the whole, you're throwing an electricity spell underwater, conducting and all of that stuff. But at the same time, it's immune to electricity, so it shouldn't care.
Right.
But using a Storm Giant underwater, like, I understand the idea of using a Storm Giant during a storm. So it's like, yeah, I don't care about the fact that it's raining really hard, but underwater?
I totally agree. They similarly they have a speed of 35, a walking and a swim speed of 30. I mean, I really didn't understand. Cloud Giant, maybe I can see because there's water in the cloud and there's maybe
the Storm Giant is even more so though.
Yeah.
A lot of times when you think of a Storm Giant, you're thinking of a giant that's walking the oceans. It's gigantic and it brings storms with it. It's something that crashes down and takes down ships.
Yeah.
It's usually, like with other giants, they're usually large size. Storm Giants are usually one of the ones that you see that are huge size creatures.
Right.
And I believe in both of these editions, they are huge size creatures.
They are. They are.
But I think in these editions, all giants are huge size, with possible exception of hill giants. Either way.
And Rune Giants and
Rune Giants colossal?
Gargantuan.
Gargantuan? Yeah, well, Rune Giants are something completely else. Rune Giants were created in Pathfinder 1 for a couple of the specific adventures going along with that, with the Rune Lords. I have played the at least Pathfinder 1 version of Rise of the Rune Lords. It is a very entertaining adventure. But Rune Giants are nasty. And you know what? They're actually nastier in Pathfinder 1 than they were in Pathfinder 2, which is kind of funny. And they're really high CRs here. That is not the video we're talking about, but that is some reason why I think they made Storm Giants a little weaker in Pathfinder 2, because they decided to have a more powerful giant in the Rune Giant.
Right, but it still doesn't make sense why they decided to decrease the strength of the Storm Giant so much in D&D 5th edition.
And if I could explain all of the decisions they made in D&D 5th edition, I would be making a lot more money than I do now. Anyway, so that's basically what we think about it. So we've compared their abilities. In general, I feel like there's some more nuance to... I think there's a little bit more nuance to the Pathfinder 2, but not significantly more. Right. So comparatively with their normal amount of nuance, I actually like the Storm Giant a little bit more in 5th edition. But not more, just a little bit.
Yeah, I would have to say it's definitely because of the lack of nuances that usually Pathfinder puts in, and because it doesn't have certain abilities which I thought it should have. I agree. The fifth edition is seems is slightly better.
Now, one reason why the Pathfinder isn't as good is because of the Rune Giant, but the Storm Giant really should be a little bit cooler and a little bit more fun in both editions.
Yes.
So, tell us your opinion of the Storm Giant. Tell us if you fought one. Tell us if you how you would use a Storm Giant. My problem with the Storm Giants as they currently are is I don't really have a great way to use them because I love the concept of cloud giants. You go up into the clouds. You have a cloud city of giants that you have to walk around. You're small. All sorts of things that cool can happen there. Storm giants are just a little more. I mean, usually they're a little more volatile.
Right. And, that magic beanstalk works with the cloud giants better.
Exactly. The beanstalk works with the cloud giants. Now, I think they're chaotic good in both editions. Am I right?
Yes, they are chaotic good in both editions. So, yeah. So I think that summarizes it. What I would like, if you guys can explain to us why storm giants have swim, please put it in the comments. I think that would be a great comment so we can understand the reasoning for that.
I'm sure we could look it up, but it's something that would be nice to know.
Right.
I mean, again, storm giants can swim because of the fact that there's some. Well, no, remember, storm giants are ocean dwellers, so they have to swim. Well, because it's not like they're 50 feet tall; they're just like 15 to 20 feet tall. So they need to be able to swim, yes. But at the same time, it seems really counterproductive to shoot lightning at people underwater.
Yeah.
Anyway, tell us your thoughts about storm giants. Tell us your thoughts about other giants. Do you want to hear more about the Rune Giant? Sadly, that is obviously not in Pathfinder 5th edition, but I can go into some of the history of it in Pathfinder 1, Pathfinder 2, if it's something that people are interested in.
Right.
So tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like.
Yeah, please subscribe, and we will see you next time. I'm Boris.
I'm Jonathan. Have a nice day, guys.
Thanks.